This is the first time the 2 minutes seems very long.
You're just chopping at the bit to get back to people, aren't you?
I'm going, oh my goodness, 2 minutes is a long time.
Well, that also means you're prepared.
How are you, Traci?
I'm doing okay. I am doing okay. How are you doing?
I know. I'm doing well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to season number 5, EP 1. We thank you for being with us past 4 years. I know one of those years we did 1 or 2 shows, but just want to say thank you for being here on this 31st day of January, the last day of January. Just want to say thank you for all of you being patient, I know, with us, but life happens. Traci, the floor is yours. The floor is yours, dear. I'm not.
Yeah. So life does happen. And as you know, Wulwyn, it's been a very transitional time for me. I mean, the fact that we have our first episode the last day of the first month, right? It says a lot about life happening, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And I really appreciate, your grace and all that. I mean, we were just here recently with your dad, right? And so for those of you who don't know, my mom passed away, unfortunately. We've been talking about her being in the hospital, and she passed away earlier this month. And a week later, her sister passed away suddenly. We weren't expecting that. So there's been a lot of loss in the family that, brings all sorts of things to the forefront. I think one of my dear friends said it best: grace is a choice. And that is so true. Like, that really hit me. I mean, during this time, there's been so much support and so much gratitude for the support that, I've been getting and my family's been getting, and lessons of, what mom brought to our lives and to the world, and my aunt as well, who was incredible, in her own right. And, just kind of, feeling the loss, but also really celebrating, their lives and the gifts and the learnings and the teachings and all that. But I think grace is something that has always been. It's funny because when this friend said this to me, I had recently had a ring made, and with 3 words on it that really stood out for me and going into this year. And one of them was grace. And so it was in the one in the middle too, which was really kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, that really, really stands out for me. So yeah, just kind of wading through it, taking one day at a time, allowing, as always, like anybody who is going through loss, has been through loss of this magnitude. I consider myself to be pretty fortunate that I'm the age I am. And this is, other than, grandparents and great grandparents and things like that. But, when it comes to those core relationships, there's nothing more core than parents, I think, and siblings. But anyway. Yeah.
Wow. I don't know how to, and
you froze.
I do know that when it happened for me, a couple weeks or so, you start to hear stories from people who never thought it wise to share the story of your parent, of the parent that passed. And then once you start hearing these things, you start understanding that though they were your parent, they were parents to a whole lot of other people too. They were loved by a whole lot of other people, and you go, "Oh my goodness, he just wasn't my dad, or she just wasn't my mom. She was a whole person to others, right? A whole body of work. They had co-workers, had friends, family, nieces and nephews." And when I start hearing how my cousins, my first cousins were speaking about him, I'm looking like, so dad wasn't really my dad only, huh? Did that occur in your case also?
Oh yeah, so much of that. So I haven't been in touch with one of my first cousins for many, many years. I mean, so much so that we got her letter through my in-laws, who we stayed with for a very short period of time before we moved down here. So that was
Okay.
16 years ago.
Wow.
And I got the kindest card. And my cousin isn't a brilliant artist in her own right. She's a glass blower, and she does extraordinary. I mean, her stuff is in the Met. I mean, that's the level of expertise and
Excellence.
Excellence. Yeah, that's a good word. That's the level of excellence that she produces. But she said, I just wanted to share with you that your mother always inspired me through her creativity to embrace my own. And it's those moments you're just like, oh, geez, you're right. You don't think to share those things. I mean, there's this great book. I highly recommend it. And it talks exactly about what we're saying right here. It's called Yes, You Can Change the World. And it is about a young man who goes to his father's funeral, and he realizes throughout the book he didn't really know his father on all the levels and dimensions. He actually was one of these people coming in very judgmental of his father. His father didn't do this and he didn't do that, and he wasn't there for me, and he wasn't the person that I needed him to be, and all these things that we can oftentimes do with people in general, not to mention our parents. And through all the people who came to him and shared, I mean, he thought, oh, my father was a nobody. There's nobody going to be there. And there was like hundreds of people, right? Like just hundreds and hundreds of people. And he was so taken back, but people from all walks of life, people, all age groups, and everybody shared with him how he made such an impact. His father had made such an impact on their lives. And so I think that is an important factor that, we know our parents as they are to us, but that they were so many different things to different people.
Yeah.
And my mom, was definitely, in fact, we had one sweet woman when my mom was in the hospital and I was trying to help prepare her for home care. I was in contact with a number of people at the hospital, and this one dear woman who was just so sweet the entire time. She actually reached out afterwards, and she, with her condolences, and she says, I'm so sorry. Your mother was beloved. Was absolutely beloved. She said because she was, for a month in the hospital. And so apparently the entire floor fell in love with my mother. They would jockey to be able to care for her.
Wow.
She was the patient that everybody wanted to have on their shift.
Mm,
Um,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
I know why. That wasn't a surprise, but this woman says, we see this unfortunately every day.
mm,
You know, we unfortunately have to say goodbye to patients every day.
mm.
And I don't say this often, but your mother was different. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
And she
Wow.
said it was a hard hit for the entire floor. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that would. So eavesdroppers, welcome to season one, season four, EP1 rather. You just dove right in. Tracy mom transitioned earlier. I think it was this year. And we're just we're just in that what would I say, it's not a hole. We're in this place where we're reminiscing, we're just speaking about, and we know whatever this is eavesdrop, whatever comes up. Tracy, you were speaking earlier about, you know her being different.
Mm.
uh could you share that? What do you said she was beloved, and it wasn't a surprise to you that the whole floor. What about her um, magnetized folks like that? What about her that drew folks to her?
So I've thought that's such a good question. I appreciate you asking it too. I've
Mhm,
thought many times about the impact of things in life.
mhm,
So, like, I remember a number of years ago thinking about beauty. I was like, what is it about beauty? Because beauty is, I mean, I think everything, God created everything for a reason, right? Like for a purpose.
gotcha.
And what is the purpose of beauty? And beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So we don't all find all things beautiful. But what is beauty meant to do, to offer? And the thought I had was it inspires, right? Beauty isn't
Mm,
something just to own or have or be or whatever. It's an inspiration. And so my mother held the lens, I mean, so strongly of beauty.
mm,
She was beautiful herself. I mean,
mm,
absolutely exquisitely beautiful. I mean, I looked at pictures my aunt had sent so there's one more aunt still in the family.
okay.
So there were three sisters, and so two of them passed, and so my other aunt sent me this picture of the three of them that was taken, not too much before my mom went into the hospital. And
Mm,
looking at the picture, they had all been out to lunch, and I thought this woman was in her mid 80s, and she was beautiful. I mean, she always people thought she was much younger than she was. I mean, her whole life. But the beauty was an inspiration because her lens was also, I mean, she held hard and fast to beauty, sometimes to the point where that's all she would see. Right.
mm,
And she didn't want to see
mm.
the things that, I mean, even in the end, I said to my brother, like, do you notice that mom literally she'll hear just fine. But then if you say anything she doesn't want to hear, she'll be like, what? What did you say? I can't hear you. Like legitimately,
Wow.
she wasn't playing games. She literally would got
Wow.
to the point where she'd turn off anything that wasn't inspirational to her, that wasn't a beautiful thing to hear or think about.
Mm,
Like she would just tune it out, which, I mean, life has been kind of crazy. I mean, there's certain information you had, like when we were trying to get things across to her that she needed to do for her own self-care and everything. It's like, what? And I was like, oh God, how are we going to do
mm,
this? It's really hard. But,
mm,
but she was so dedicated and committed and to this concept of creating beauty in this world, leaving the world the more beautiful
wow.
place than she found it. And as an extraordinary artist that she just created. I mean, I was showing pictures to one of the realtors because, we're in the midst of, talking to realtors and that kind of thing. And
Mm,
she had the pictures and she's like, oh my goodness, this is extraordinary. Like you don't just see this I'm like, when I said to her, I said, I know you were probably thinking everybody says the same thing. Oh, this house is different. And we'd love to show it as is and all of that because it's just really extraordinary. She's like, well, you hear that all the time. And then she's like, but in this case, it's like, holy cow. It's a whole
mm,
different level
mm,
of beauty. And the gardens, around her house and everything. So, I mean, all of it, like I look at that and, I have an aesthetic, an appreciation for aesthetic,
mm,
things that are beautiful because I think I realized that I picked that up from my mom, because it
Mm.
was just something that was so inspiring. I mean, life can be, unfortunately, not so beautiful.
Mm-mm.
And when you can see beauty in everything, my mother, like, one of the last things my husband, when we were out with her, because we were with her the last week of her life,
Mm.
and there was this, she used to love to go outside and sit on her back patio. And there's this great picture, and she's looking out at her garden in the back. And she has this umbrella. She's in the sun. She's got her umbrella. She's like this, this little woman, under this umbrella watching. It's very sweet.
I
And
can
my
see
husband
that.
asked her, "What are you looking at?" And she says, "Nature."
Mm.
And he said, "Oh," and she says, "And every time I look at it, I see something more beautiful."
Mm. 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 Hey, you. This is our show. We can do whatever we want to do on this, sweetheart, and we're camping here.
Yeah. So I think it's
Ah,
just that celebration of, I want to look through the lens of my mom,
yeah.
even if it temporary moments, especially when things are hard, to be able to look into the world and say, I see something more beautiful than I saw before.
Mm.
It reminds me of the movie Life is Beautiful,
Mm.
about the Holocaust.
Okay.
If you can, that movie was so extraordinary, and I think touched so many hearts, because at the most awful, ugly, one of the most awful, ugly periods of history,
Mm.
the main character in the movie was always focused on humor and beauty,
Mm. Mm.
and how he could create humor, love, how he could infuse humor, love, and beauty into his daily life, even in a concentration camp.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
and it's kind of, I mean, that's a stark, comparison, but it's kind of what it reminds me of. It's like how,
Mhm.
when we're challenged in our most challenged times, can we still see beauty?
Mm.
Can we still find grace? Choose grace? Can we still bring humor? I mean, fun and humor has become increasingly important to me over the years.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things too that I've gotten out of this, in the end, my mom and I had some really good conversations. And one of the things she said, which made me realize too that she was kind of ready, maybe not totally conscious of that, but
Mm.
was that she says, I've gotten a lot of lessons in life. And one of them is that I spent so much time being passionate about my creations that I didn't build relationships.
Mm.
And she said, it gets kind of lonely when you've moved away from your family and friends. And she says, and at my age, a lot of your friends have passed.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so one of the things, I was talking to a woman earlier today in an executive women's group that I run. She was interested in possibly joining. And I said to her, my mom used to always say, I'm so amazed by how many friends you have,
Mm.
because she did not spend a lot of time, making friends. She was so, again, as an artist, so caught up in her creative worlds that,
Right.
her energy went there. And that, Mark and I, my brother and I, were always cultivating friendships. And she just thought that was the coolest thing, because that's not something that she really had. But as she went through life, that became increasingly more challenging, is not having those people close by who she could
Gotcha.
share life experience with. And she shared that in the end. It made me sad, but it also, and I said to this woman today, it's why I do what I do.
Mm.
So that
Mhm.
people can not only cultivate a deep relationship with themselves, but through that deeper relationship with themselves, they can cultivate deeper relationships with others.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are those impacts, both positive and, less so, like the sad parts and the happy
Mhm.
parts, that you kind of, walk forward to and say, okay, how has that impacted me to be
Yeah.
different in the world? And I think those are two of the standouts for me.
Well, as you were speaking, a couple of things that came to me, and I take notes, where she tuned it out, right? We have the ability to tune it out. when the things that we choose to be a trash can when someone does something to us. We choose it. We accept it, right? That we have to reply. We have to say something about it. I
Mm.
mean, time is so short. Just yesterday, today I was praying. God, just make me focus on the right things. And now you come and say this, that it confirms that as but most times it's someone you love. So it could be Verlin, it could be the kids that would say something that you would want to go and reply to. But let's look at the motive of my wife and my kids. Are they really trying to stab me in the back? No, they're not. They're living also their lives, and they are expressing what they're going through at the moment. It's the story that they have. And should I stop my story, jump in theirs and go, "Ah, ah, ah, ah," or I have to clarify something here with you, blah, 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 and then come back to my story? That there's in Nehemiah, um, where Nehemiah goes to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. It says that he stood on the wall and kept on working with a tool in a hand and a weapon in the other. That when there were distractions, he stayed on the wall and kept on building the wall. These distractions come to just do that, distract, so that the time that has been allotted to us to build these masterpieces, and believe it or not, where we were saying your mom focused on and she verbalized, I'm amazed how you guys make friends. It's the same way how if I looked at her, I'll be like, how could this woman create such beautiful things? It's because her excellence, her time spent in it. It's what we spend time that brings what that full purpose that God has given to us, right? And then another thing, you said, what are you looking at? Where your husband asked, what was she looking at? She says, looking at nature and see something new every time.
Mhm.
Um, those are such excellent lessons for us that we must not engage the usual with disrespect. We must not engage the mundane things with I've seen that before.
Mhm.
So there's the same way that we treat spouses. I don't
Yeah.
know why I'm going there. It's the same way we treat friends. The friend is the same way we treat coworkers. I heard a story where the assistant of someone had picked up the burden of the executive during a time where her home wasn't stable. The home got stable. She came back to work. The assistant now is in the doghouse because the head isn't giving reverence and talking and doing things with the assistant. The mundane, it's so important that we look with fresh eyes every time. Oh, wow, you have a new gray streak there. Oh, wow, you have a new wrinkle there. I mean, no, really, because we are changing every second. And as we're changing, I think the more we appreciate each other, the more we appreciate ourselves. And you said that in the beginning, grace is a choice where you choosing to be graceful to yourself, where we're graceful to ourselves in all things that we're doing. That allows us to look at nature, to look at the person with, wow, I see a new person. I see something new in you. I see something new in this place that I've sat and I tell you this, and I punt it back to you. The house we're in, I had the we had moved from here before, built a home, and then came back here, and I'm thinking, okay, on my next house, and instead of my next house, my perspective changed to wherever I am, that's my mansion. Wherever I am, that's my mansion. And I tell you, Tracy, so so we talked about the closet dropping in and getting on my head, in
Yeah.
passing. When it dropped, I went and I built a custom closet in with everything in it, poles, valets, etc. And I said, this not because it's not in a gated community, not because it's not a 5,000 square feet, but I can landscape it. I can make every room represent that when I get in it, it represents me. It's my mansion. And as soon as I saw it that way, oh my goodness, Tracy, when I pull up to the house, I'm like, this is beautiful. When I sit and eat in the dining room and I look from the dining to the living and I go, oh, wow, yeah, this is beautiful. When I turn to the kitchen, oh, this is beautiful. And I'm not fooling myself saying it's a trashy place and I'm saying, oh, this place is no, no, no. I have made it beautiful because it's beautiful. And that's where we see things, you know, when you start looking at things and truly appreciating it and picking it up. I think that's what mom shows.
She did. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. You know, I really agree with that. And, you know, I feel like, you mean, you know, I say this all the time. It starts with ourselves. When we can own ourselves in all of our iterations, right? In our strengths, our weaknesses, everything in between, we have that true appreciation of self and the value of that, right? The whole entity all together, good, bad, and otherwise, all together. That's the whole. When we can appreciate that, that is when we can start to, it resounds outside of that. We can really start to appreciate things that we normally, I mean, it transforms us in a lot of ways. You know, when we, that self love, self-care, self-appreciation then allows us to tune out into the world and have the same for the world around us. You know, for other people, you know, we see them in their entirety. For situations, it's more the experience we have with it. And that's what I'm hearing you say. It's not the thing itself. We don't chase, you know, we spend most of our early lives chasing, you know, if I have that just perfect house, then I'll be happy. If I have that just perfect face, then I'll be happy. If I have that just perfect mate, then I'll be happy. That job, fill in the blank. And we chase, 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 and we try to form fit ourselves into that box because we think if that's who we are or what we have, then we'll be, right, the way we want to be. Our lives will be what we want our lives to be. And that's not how it works at all. It's we seek, right? We seek in surrogacy the things that we're not creating in actuality. In other words, if we feel we need the house to make us happy, it's because we're not happy in some part of our lives within ourselves, right? It's just trying to say, well, if I have that thing, it'll take the place of what I really want. Which is a grounded sense of self. Or if I have security, knowing I have X number of dollars in the bank or a big fortress around my home, or, you know, whatever that is, whatever security means to you, it's a lack of sense of security within ourselves. We aren't secure with who we are in the world. And so it's recognizing that. And when we can start, I mean, I think there's always a development of that never stops. But when we can start to get enough into this place of ownership, I don't know why these little bugs find their way into my space just at these times.
The eavesdropping.
I'm supposed to see them as beautiful, apparently. I'm not supposed to swat them away. I'm supposed to just see them as beautiful. But you know, it's these moments of not moments, but these developmental places we can get to of ownership, right? I own, you know, I was telling a client just yesterday something that I had to own that was really embarrassing that happened recently because of everything I'm going through. My mind just was someplace else and I just completely forgot about something on my calendar. And I did, this was at the level I've never done before in my entire life. And I'm like, what did I blip out? Like, what the heck? I mean, where was my brain? You know, how did I do that? Thank you, Jojo.
Thank you, Joe. That's a high school buddy of mine. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, so it's I kind of humbly was like, I'm so embarrassed. Like it's, you know, I just feel so badly that it's, I don't know what happened. And the person, he was like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, I mean, I was given grace. It was just like, I'm just glad you're okay. And, and everything's fine. And, something worse didn't happen. It was just your memory, not something happened to you. But it really, my humanity is coming through. And I think I'm having new appreciation for that, for my fallibleness, right? My parts of imperfectness and being vulnerable to that and owning it out loud. Not just, it's hard enough to own it within yourself, but then to be able to say it out loud, like, yeah, I really messed up. Like, I made a mistake. I know it's not that I am a mistake, right? I made a mistake and in ways that typically just you wouldn't think, would never come from anybody who's known me over the years. That's okay.
Yes.
Who we are isn't our ability to be consistent every single moment of the day, right? If we cultivate that, that's great, but that's not our identity. That's not who we are. We're human. And as humans, we make mistakes. And if we can't own that, then somehow we're not embracing our humanity.
Wow. To those who are on, let us know, what thank you, Jojo. Sylvester was on earlier. Let us know what are your thoughts on, if you've lost a parent, a loved one, how do you cope with it? Right.
Yeah.
We're here speaking about my dad, happened last September, and Tracy's who not last September, a year ago. And then Tracy's recently occurred. And let us know where you're listening and watching from. As you were talking, I had this conversation with Verlin the other day, and she was saying an ex told friends. This is about her friend. She said the husband ex told friends of the husband that I missed a good man. Now he's happy with his wife. So they were girlfriends, not spouses. And then whatever happened, and he marries. And I told Verlin, I said, that's not a good thing to say. And I think the reason that came up because you said, we seek surrogacy in things that we don't have, no security, and then we want the security or no partner, and we see something. I said, whenever we say that sentence, oh my goodness, I missed a good man or I missed a good woman. I said that shouldn't be said because that person wasn't for you. And if you're looking from the outside at what the person is in a relationship with another, you don't know what's happening in the house. The person, so I said, Verlin, look at us. I said, somebody been looking and say, oh, I missed a good woman or I missed a good man. I'm like, come, let me tell you a story. I said, what happened is we've been given grace to deal with one another so that the grace that I have for you overpowers my need to leave you because I love you. Likewise, your grace that you have overpowers to stay and give me the grace for my mistakes that you love me. But here comes the other person. You wouldn't have the grace, my dear, to deal with the nonsense and things that I do. You would have left me in a second versus you seeing the outward that you see a picture of us, don't even like, oh, I miss a good man, or you seeing whatever that you want to see. Our ability to embrace what we have, again, coming back to that same thing, embrace what we have because that's what we're given and that's what we chose. And our ability to work on that thing to create a masterpiece because that man or that woman that you see has been worked on first by the grace of God, one, and two, by the partner who has molded and gracefully affirmed and built, and now you've seen a built person that now you go, I want that. No, you can't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Because Wulwyn has worked on it. Traci has worked on it. Verlin has worked on it. We've worked on this thing now that now has ballooned, and everybody's looking at it and saying, I want that. So your business, right? You're working on your business. You've been working on your business, Traci. You've been doing a whole lot. Now I got to bring this in because he just Joe says that's powerful about identity. We need more safe spaces where we can be vulnerable, especially men. It is okay not to be okay. Lost my younger sister 2 weeks ago in Liberia. Sorry, Joe.
Wow.
I really wish I was more involved in her life. I was too focused on trying to do everything else on my feeble shoulders and not fully trust in God. Ugh.
Wow. Talk about being vulnerable. Thank you for showing up fully. I mean, it's one thing to say, as men, we should feel more safe or want to seek spaces to feel more vulnerable. But what you just did is you made a space. You chose to be vulnerable in it. And I think that's super powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm so sorry for your loss.
I know, Joe. Oof. So, oh my goodness, that threw me for a loop there. So you've been working on your business, right? And or whatever you've been working on, and you've picked it up from here and it's gone there and gone to the next. And someone's looking at it, not knowing all the things that you've been through to build this.
It's an overnight success thing. They're like, oh, so-and-so is an overnight success. It's like, no, they've been spending 30 years getting to that point. You just happen to know about them now.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so I was going to say, I love what you just said about working towards things. I also think I'm going to add, there's different sides. There's always different stories, right? Because I think it goes back to what we were saying is when somebody says, oh, I missed out on a good thing. I should have stayed in that relationship. It's also them realizing, just like what Joe shared, is that, we can come to this realization, and it can be a sad one, that, gosh, I wish I had invested in that, because now at the point I am currently,
yes,
I want that in my life, and so you can't have it that way, but then there's also these opportunities to go back and say, I think it's okay to say that, because it's to be, you're being honest with yourself. You're being honest with your own evolution. You're being honest with your own faults or shortcomings, but at the same time, you can give yourself grace and say, well, that's where I was. Like Joe said, that was where I was, in a place where I was putting more energy into other things. And now I wish, that I would have spent more time, with my sister. I think that's what it's about, because that's how we grow, is when we also look at the part, right? Like, I know that's where I was, and that's the decision I made. And in some cases, we can go back and rekindle things. I'm not saying go in and break up people's marriages. I'm saying we can go back and say to people, I really didn't appreciate you the way I feel like I should have, or I would have wanted to. And I just want you to know that. Like, I see you as an incredible man or an incredible woman, and I really hope you're happy. And I love to see you. You seem to be happy. And I just want you to know that I recognize in you those wonderful parts that I guess I just didn't really give you due credence in the past. I think that's really powerful. And when we can do it from a place of the heart, and know that we can be vulnerable both with ourselves and and as well as with other people, to just come back and say, I'm sorry for not fully appreciating you and what I had when I had it. That I think is powerful, but I also feel like we don't, because I know there's a lot of people who hear this, because I hear people telling me this. It's like, I hear all these people saying you should work on things, but I'm finding myself in environments where I don't want to work on it. Not that I've moved beyond it. I've grown out of this relationship. I chose it for that point in my life, but that's not really what's fueling me now. And I don't want to feel guilty for not continuing to pour into it because I was told I have to pour into it, like until death do you part. And that's also to be very careful about our beliefs and what works for us, because for some people, they find themselves in a very different place and they don't want to have to feel obligated to keep working on something that no longer serves the person they've become. And that's important too. But as I always tell people, communicate that.
Yeah.
You need to be honest. If you're being honest with yourself, it's time to start taking the steps towards being able to be honest with those people in your life who you feel you're outgrowing. Because, if you just cut bait and run, and they haven't been given, a look inside what's going on within you, that's not only hurtful and damaging, but then you end up possibly being that person later on going, knock, knock, knock. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't handle that well, and I didn't communicate. It wasn't you, it was me, or it was us. We fit before, but we're just not fitting anymore as I feel it. And, I want something different than what you want. And, and if you communicate that, maybe the person's like, oh, I've been thinking I want that too, but I didn't think you wanted it. And then you can move together in that direction. And if not, it's like, no, you're right, I don't want that. And you're like, well, but I have to be honest with the fact that I do want this. And, then you figure that out together. But, I think that's the whole point, is that, no matter whether we're coming apart or coming together, we get to do it as a team. I mean, if we are in that partnership now, that could be husband and wife, that could be best friends, that could be members of a family,
co-workers.
We are in partnership, right? There's some sort of contractual or unspoken agreement that we have invested a certain amount of time in this relationship, where there is that, and we get to do this together, right? So I think I just wanted to say that, because I think we all find ourselves in very different places these days for very different reasons. And I think part of being vulnerable is also being able to say, that's just not who I am anymore, or that's just not where I am at. That's just not what I want.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people saying, I thought I wanted the big house and the tons of money and the, expense account, in my job or whatever, but I'm realizing that I want a more simplistic life, and those things aren't important to me anymore. And that's okay. And just because it's a relationship doesn't make it bad. I mean, it's not like, oh, people just casting aside relationships. I mean, if you do it the right way for the right reasons, then that's empowerment. That's not casting people aside. Because I see a lot of people stay in jobs, in relationships, in all sorts of things because of obligation. Oh, wow. Ouch. There is nothing more challenging than that. Doing things from a place of obligation and not true heart desire. If your heart's elsewhere, or you want to find something elsewhere in life, and you're just holding on to where you're at out of obligation. Ugh.
You put me back to 2011, November. God says leave EMC, and I go, okay, God, I've been waiting for this for 4 years, and I'm looking at where we're staying. I'm looking at what we're driving. I'm looking at the school the kids are in. I'm looking at the lifestyle, and I go, God, I've been waiting for this call. I've been waiting for this for 4 years. And I was sitting in that office at EMC just, this place is so small. I can't wait for the clouds to be my roof. The roof in this place is coming down on me, blah, blah, blah. And imagine if I had disobeyed and said, no, I need to stay here. My wife needs me. The kids need. And I'm not saying that I didn't think on those things. I'm not saying it didn't. But I knew what my purpose was. I knew my purpose wasn't in that place, because I had looked at the older men take it as obligation, and they're in the meetings going, we we're talking about the software that, and I had an out of body experience looking at him like, I don't want to be in this place like this, because right now this man or woman wants to be somewhere else where they are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, enjoying what they want to be enjoying. The fact that they're sleeping here every single day, they were just ticking a box and ticking a box and ticking a box. So obligations, eavesdroppers, when the bills it when the bills are here and your happiness is there, and you can have a conversation with the bill collectors or whomever, and say, I'm I'm in a process of transition. I'm in a process of doing something that income wouldn't be the same, and da 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 da, or maybe it would be. But I cannot mortgage my life. I cannot mortgage my happiness, my peace, my purpose for bills. So that, which means I'm doing it twice. I've spent money that I don't have. Now I'm in debt to my eyeballs, and it's killing me. And I have to stay in this place to work for it, which means I hate this job, which means that the people who are getting the things from out of me, my production in that place, is so acidic. even if I'm faking it, it shows.
Oh, it shows. You can't fake
It
it.
shows. You can't fake it. So you're doing a disservice to yourself and to the people around you. So trust and believe. Bills pump the bills. And when I say pump the bills, you can handle them. You can handle them. You can talk. You can engage. But your happiness, Traci, I tell you, I can sit down. I looked at I have a little red book, where I put notes and things in, and I've had it since 2007. And I'm looking in the little red book during that period, and I'm seeing the things that I have in there and the things that I'm doing. The children's going to pick up the children from school, got to put these things, all these different tasks. And then I noticed what happened after I left EMC. I was home for every single basketball, every single event at their schools. When I say every, I was home when they got home. I was fixing food for them when they got home, and do your homework, do this. And when I looked back at the comparison between the time of corporate America and being an entrepreneur for God, doing what God wanted me to do, the full purpose. When I compare those two, my life as in the latter, it's so much more richer, and it has less income in there, but more time and more enrichment with family, more enrichment with friends, more enrichment with for people, for love, for compassion for the world. So that I'll end here and punt back to you. It's 2024. You have resolutions. You're sitting going, what do I want to do? And you know what you want to do. You know it, but something's holding you back and it's some external thing that you can't control, or you may control it. I'm going to advise you, look at everything, write a plan down, and execute, because that thing will be here 20 years from now. But the opportunity for you to change yourself in the world, that's going to be missing, because you may be a bit older 20 years from now, 20 years from now, that you wouldn't be able to do the things that you're supposed to do in this season.
Yeah.
Traci, you go back.
So
here.
you talk about what you just spoke to is a difference between choosing your legitimate value and how you were designed to be in this life, and the roles you've been conditioned to play. That's the difference, because a lot of people are like, but I have this role that I'm playing. I've got to be a good father or husband or wife or executive CEO, or those are the roles. They're thinking about making decisions based on their roles versus, like you said, I was designed by God to have a purpose that is very unique. There's roles I play, but this is who I am. And I need to position who I am in the most rightful way, in the most discerning way, in the best positioned way, so that I can do what God created me to do. That's a totally different conversation than most people have with the roles, because and that's the difference, right? And so I would say to people, think about, it's what I start my book out talking about. Are you living a leased life, where the leasing concept is you don't own it? It's a role you're playing, and you're choosing to make decisions based on the role, not your soul, right? Life, right? The one that you were created to live and experience, right? To feel the love and to feel the purpose and the passion. Thank you.
There's her name.
That's chapter 1.
There's the book.
Yeah, chapter 1, living a leased, are you living a leased life? And so this idea, again, until we know, we don't know what we don't know until we know, right? So until we think about it in these terms, the conditioning is so strong. The conditioning is all about roles. You've been conditioned to have identities based on roles, not your true identity. That's the secret, right? What is your true identity? And so many people are waking up and being like, oh my God, true identity versus false identity. But sometimes if we are just waking up to this, what we have to give up in order to embrace our true identity is the old identity and the entire life that goes with it. And that's what you're talking about, is like the life that's attached to that false identity or those roles. And this is partially why I always say we need to prepare people when they're getting ready to sell their business. Okay, they create a business over 20 some years, that's their baby, and they're like, yeah, I want to look for the right buyer. But I'm like, if you're not preparing yourself, mind, body, spirit, soul, all of it, to transition out of that life, because this is, you think it's unfortunately you think it's just your business, but you have identified yourself by that business. You have identified yourself just like almost as a parent to that business. And when that business goes out of your life to live their own life somewhere else, that's the empty nest syndrome thing, right? So again, and this is why it happens when we live our identities based on our roles. When that role shifts, we don't know what to do. But if you live your true identity, you can take on different roles. It's like hats. You could take one off and put another one on. And what hasn't changed is who you are. You are not your roles. You are something different and more and greater than. Right? Live your life from your soul purpose. Live your roles, the roles you choose in any given moment. Live it from that identity of soul self, not the role itself and how the world outside of you has told you to live it. What you should want, how you should do it, what a good mother looks like, what a good husband looks like, right? What a good leader looks like. I hear that all the time. People are like, okay, well, I read the recent Forbes article about the top things in leadership and I need to have as a leader. And I'm like, trash that thing now, please. Because that is not, I'm not saying there isn't value there, but if you're trying to subscribe to what people are outside of you are telling you should be as a leader, that's what I want you to trash. I want you to trash that approach to leadership. You've got to figure out, first of all, who you are, how you're designed to be, and how that aligns to your roles, not the other way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I just got a few more minutes, 6 more minutes here. Who are you? Who am I? You ask that question, and I think that's where it starts from. It starts when you really sit with yourself and have a conversation with yourself to start the definition process, and then let that guard and guide you in your process of discovery, because the person who you are is the world has an issue that only you can fix. The world has a problem that only when you start being, that's when you will start, you will find out your importance. But because, as we said, you've been conditioned to see yourself as a CEO, as this big guy, working in this place, Traci, got 3 more minutes. Go ahead. I'm done. I swear I'm done.
Well, this is what is beautiful about our conversations always, is that they ebb and flow, and they start where they need to start and they end where they need to end. And I think I appreciate that more so than ever at the time in my life that I'm in, because it's a faith and trust that when you apply yourself in a way that feels aligned. And that's what we're kind of saying here, is if there's something in your life that doesn't feel aligned, don't ignore it. Don't spend so much time here trying to rationalize why you should keep going the course. If it's coming from here, if it's coming from your heart, that's one thing. But if it's coming from your head, we need to make sure that this part of you and this part of you, which you can't see on me, but your gut, like your instincts and your heart, right? This is the seat of the why we do anything is here. And if we're not engaged enough here and really feeling, whether we have alignment, not just thinking alignment, but feeling alignment and sensing alignment, because we can tell in our bodies whether something aligns with us. It just doesn't, like if I get a pit in my stomach every time I think about having to show up and work with somebody, that's data information we should be paying attention to. And so it's how much are you really integrating all of the information that's coming through you into making discerned decisions regarding you, regarding where you invest your time, energy, and your life, right? If you're going to plug your life into various things, is that what you're called to do? When we talk about calling, that's what I'm talking about, is head, heart, guts aligned. What we think we should be doing, what we feel we should be doing, what we sense we should be doing is all in alignment. But if you have to keep talking yourself into it here and here, it's like calling you elsewhere, like it's pulling you here and you're like, no, we got to go over here, and you wonder why you feel all tied up in a knot. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's simple, but it's not easy. When I have a lot of people I'm talking to now that are they're recognizing and waking up to the fact that they've been living a totally inauthentic life. And that, talk about like life crisis, right? It's an identity crisis. And it's not easy. And it takes a lot of support, and it takes a lot of care and grace, and in many ways, that's what we're all going through to some extent. People who are willing to take leaps of faith, like you talked about, you've done, Wulwyn, these things just get a little bit more easy. But some people are doing this for the first time. They're awakening to these things for the first time ever. And just give yourself grace, right? Be vulnerable with where you are. Allow yourself to develop as you need to. And reach out, because we're here to work with one another and collaborate on these things. I feel like the time I'm going through, although very challenging, I don't feel alone. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is that when we're going through these things in life and we feel alone, even if we're surrounded by people, it's because there's something within us that we're blocking that ability to share ourselves in that way during that time. We're the ones putting ourselves in a closet all by ourselves. Right? There's a whole world of people and many people who love you. So many people who are trained to help and support you in these ways.
Well, Traci, has been a great EP1 season 5. Thank you so much for eavesdropping with us today. We'll look forward to talking with you, speaking with you, or you eavesdropping in the next 2 weeks. Traci, have an excellent one.
You too, Wulwyn. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.